This is American fighter Chuck Norris.
This is WWE Hall of Famer, the hardcore legend Mick Foley.
NFL legend Steve Mariucci, and I don't start my day without coffee and cards.
Hey, what's up? It's your boy Ricky Williams, NFL legend and herbal connoisseur. And I don't ever start my day without coffee and cards.
Hosted by my buddies, the Bearded Grinch and Mike Blazin' Balliet.
Can we just say that we all know that Ricky Williams starts more than with just coffee and cards in the morning, and that I envy the fact that he gets to start his day like that about every day, probably as a wealthy retired football player.
Good for him. He deserves every bit of it.
Amen, man. Welcome back, everybody. Coffee and cards and whatever you like to do in the morning on the weekends. I hope you guys are enjoying your Saturday. Live edition to welcome us back. And Jamie, we nailed it. We knew that Jamie would be in here right away. We already have a comment from Jamie. I got to say, I think we have, what do they call it? Like, not a roadie, but what are those people that follow bands around?
Yeah, he's a roadie. I'll call him a stan. That's what all the kids say nowadays. You're a stan.
A stand. He's a stand. He's our number one. I love it. Jamie, we love you. Thanks for jumping in, and hopefully everyone else that jumps in as well. Chris, how you been, man? It's been a while. It looks like your arm's still attached.
It's attached. It's still hanging up on this sling. It's all right. I got to knock the rust off. I forgot how we do this thing here, but I'm doing okay. I'm in between surgeries. I just recently, this past week, had my PICC line taken out, so the antibiotics are done. Had a doctor's appointment yesterday. The next surgery is the 28th of October. They'll do the full replacement, so bones and everything going back in, and then 6 weeks in a sling, and then PT starts. So I'll be swinging a golf club by January.
Man, you're like in Dak Prescott shape right now.
Yeah, it's miserable. I'm so soft around the middle. It's not good, but it is what it is. My wife keeps telling me just there's a light at the end of the tunnel, so I got to keep that in mind and keep on rolling. But God, I have too much time on my hands. I mean, I can't even go outside and walk. So it's like literally I've been in jail in my house since March.
Can you do like curls with your left arm and just get one arm like super jacked up? No,
I can't do anything. I'm on self-quarantine right now because the joint was infected, so I've got to avoid infection between now and the 28th. If I get infected, or COVID or any of those things, then I am dead in the water.
Don't do that. Stay locked in your room like Bubble Boy. That was a great movie.
It was a good movie. So we got Facebook users. For those of you who are joining us live, give us access. I think it's at the top of your page to let us know who it is. I can't see. He's asking, how was that chip? So for those of you who don't know, I do buy some repack stuff because I like to purchase them. And in one of the latest repacks that I purchased, there was the Pocky chip. I think that's how you pronounce it, the hottest chip in the world. I took down the one chip challenge, had to not drink or eat anything for 5 minutes. The hottest thing I've ever had in my mouth ever. And then your intestines feel like they're on fire. So I wouldn't recommend doing it just for the fun of it, but I can't. My wife was laughing at me so bad. She's like, typical man, like you have to do it. She's like, you can say no. I'm like, that's not how this works. Like you cannot be given a challenge and say no as a man. So doing all right.
I made that mistake one time with a wing challenge. We had to wear the gloves and the goggles, and you can't take a drink. And it was like when you're eating, you got to eat 4 of them, I think it was. And you eat them, you're fine. You're into it. You're just doing it, and you're not thinking about it. And then the next day, I'm not kidding, I had tears on the toilet coming down my face. I didn't know what to do. It was just the most – I said I would never be that person again. So good for you for jumping into it.
Well, I did learn a quick trick to anybody that's out there with really spicy stuff. Water doesn't do it. Milk is a good option liquid-wise, but take a sugar packet and put it in your mouth, and it starts to coat things and dampers down the heat.
Nice. I'll have to remember that when I never, ever torture myself again. I don't think I have it in me, but I'm glad to see you survived it so we could hop back on. Well, listen, here's what we're going to do. We're here live today. And like Chris said, if you're a Facebook user, give us access up top. And if you're watching, just please come in, say hello. Let us know you're in here. We want to be a part of this with you. We're going to try to do our plan right now. Our rough plan is to do it often and keep it short. So, I like to do other things in my life that way too, often and short. So hopefully you guys will join us for those episodes. But what we're going to do today, Chris, is I think what we decided on is we're going to do a quick rundown of what's going on in the world of sports. And why don't we start off with another guy whose limbs are hanging off of him like you, Dak Prescott. What's up with Dak, man? He seems to be in really high spirits because of all the positive messages and support he received. What have you read about Dak's recovery so far, Chris?
Yeah, good spirits for sure, but just a brutal injury. I mean, all the doctors that I've said, this going to take quite a bit of time. Worse for him, obviously, in the contract year, passed on that offer that the Cowboys had given to him. So can only hope and pray at the end of this that Jerry Jones does the right thing and still puts, a contract in front of him that's reasonable for a franchise quarterback. But I wouldn't put anything past the Cowboys. So I'm not sure what the future looks like for Dak. Unfortunately, it's just one of those things that you never want to see happen. And he's a good guy on and off the field from everything that I've seen. So, I hate it for him, but we'll just have to see if Jerry Jones takes care of him while he heals up and goes into next year.
Well, apparently he's come out and said he is the guy. He is their future. So, but he said that for 2 years now and yet refused to pay him the money. So it's one of those things that I'll believe it when I see it. But on that note, well, first of all, when I saw the injury live, I was watching it and I thought his shoe fell off, but it was just his foot that fell off. It was so bad that ESPN actually blurred out the replay so you couldn't see it. And that I can't remember the last time I saw an injury so severe where you weren't allowed to witness it on the replay. Did you notice that?
Yeah, it was one of those. I don't even remember the team, but in the NCAA tournament a couple of years ago, remember that guy, like his foot was hanging off of him? It was one of the most gross things I've ever seen. But everybody says he's going to be fine. Everybody says he's going to be taken care of. Jerry's going to be loyal to him. What happens if the Red Rocket comes off and rattles out 5 or 6 wins in a row? I think that discussion starts to change. Unfortunately, in the NFL right now, loyalty just isn't there. It's all about win now. Especially like in COVID when they've lost so much money on fans in the stands and everything else. It's all about the wins. So what happens in that scenario? Does Dak then take a back seat or does he still stay that guy?
Yeah, that's a good question. And there's a lot of guys in the fantasy world that are excited about Andy Dalton because of the way that offense is set up as a powerhouse. I mean, it really is. CeeDee Lamb stepping up. They got arguably the top running back in the league. I mean, there's arguments that you could say he is the best running back in the league. Not currently, but I think that he has that potential. And then, they got Cooper and CeeDee and so many, and Gallup, so many weapons out there. So Andy's really set up to fall into place. I think if he can't be successful there, it's the end of his career. If you can't be successful with that team, even if he doesn't win, but he can't put up numbers, Dak, even though they were losing, was putting up numbers. So if Andy can't do that, I can't imagine he can't be a Ryan Fitzpatrick for the rest of his life then, because that's really what Ryan Fitzpatrick was good at, filling in for guys like Dak and still having successful numbers.
Yeah, no doubt. Dave just put up here, even if he does get franchised 1 year, it's going to be 37 to 40 million. No doubt about that. I mean, that's good money, but he's young enough that he's going to need that big contract. He's going to need to see, the 4 and 5 year contract that Mahomes and these other guys are going to be getting, I think. So it's going to be more than just a 1 year franchise tag that he's going to be after in those negotiations. But
so, yeah, it's definitely the thing to look out for moving forward is how does Andy Dalton do? And I know he was a big pickup for a lot of people this week because Dak was putting up such great numbers in fantasy. But another big move for fantasy owners this week, Le'Veon Bell going to the powerhouse Kansas City Chiefs. Now, I know you and I have different feelings about Le'Veon Bell. I own him on probably 50 to 60% of my fantasy teams because I kind of anticipated this. Gase has hated him since he went to the Jets, but he was signed right before or right after Gase was, and Gase said, I don't believe in spending that kind of money on a running back. He played kind of like, the sour Sally kind of role and just didn't want him there. And I don't think he used him accordingly. And we've said this before, if you're not happy at your job, you underperform no matter what you're getting paid. I think that could be the case with Bell, but give me your take on it.
Yeah, I mean, look, smart move for the Chiefs, right? He signed a minimum $1 million deal with another $1 million in incentives. So the Chiefs got him really cheap. Nothing but upside from that perspective. My thing is, I just think he doesn't really add that much to the team. Yes, he's a receiving back. He can catch the ball. It's not like the Chiefs needed him. It's not like there was a piece of the puzzle that they had to go out and fill in order to make them, a top tier team. They're already there. So for me, he's just going to split carries now and split time in the backfield with Allaire. So that's going to take a little bit away from him. So when you start to do that too, it's hard for someone to gain momentum, right? So you started to see in the past couple of weeks, Allaire's been getting the ball. He's starting to get into a groove. When now you have to take that away from him and split some carries, that to me is going to be just something that's going to maybe set back Allaire just a little bit. And then some people say that, he's going to be that third down back. And, when you're at 3rd and goal, you give the ball to him. Well, that's just not the way the Chiefs play. A lot of their scoring is done in the air and on drive, passes of 20 plus yards. So they're not a, team that gets the ball on the 5-yard line and has to pound it in too often. So I don't know. Great move for the Chiefs from a financial perspective. I just don't think he's going to add as much value as some people are making him out to be.
All right. I want to comment on something that Jamie said. Bell will lead running backs in catches now. I agree with. I don't know necessarily that he's going to lead, but I think he's going to be top 5 when it comes to running backs in PPR leagues because, as far as the pass catching aspect of it, maybe not overall, but for running backs who get PPR points, he's going to be up there with them because he's. I mean, I'm just going to play a clip here for you.
Thank you so much for being my friends.
I can't help but think of the Water Boy and Coach Klein and the similarities that Andy Reid likes to have his little special secret notebook there. And you know what? I don't think the guy slept since he got that acquisition because he's drawing up 2 back sets. He's going to have Bell out of that backfield. He's going to have Bell lining up in the slot. I think that Bell is going to be used what he wanted LaShawn McCoy to be in a way when he got him, bringing him in so late in his career, and it just didn't pan out. McCoy wasn't the same guy. I still think Bell has fresher legs than people think. I know he was drafted in 2013, but he took a year off. He was injured last year, but he's had a ton of rest in between. They didn't even use him heavy this year because Gase didn't like him. So I'm buying. I'm buying Bell, not in cards. Don't think that it's go invest. Do not go invest in Le'Veon Bell cards because you're not going to have value. But in fantasy world, I'll disagree with you, Chris. We'll see how.
Well, what'll prove me wrong is the heart that he brings to it. Because granted, you're playing for the Jets. There's not a whole lot to get excited about. But he wasn't even running hard. I mean, the effort just wasn't there. He looked like he had given up. So maybe this is what he needs to, light the fire under him and get him going. Hopefully, I mean, he's an exciting player to watch. He definitely makes the game more exciting. From you and I both having AFC teams, I hate to see it because the last thing we want is the Chiefs to get better. But I don't know. We'll just see how it pans out.
I want to bring up one more thing here, though, too, that Dave said, and he says, keep those rookie legs even fresher. I would say this, that if nothing else, it doesn't force you to give your rookie running back a DeMarco Murray workload and give him 300-400 carries in a season. It allows him to learn from a vet. I would say this about Bell, and I think it's hard to argue this. He's the most patient runner to ever run in the league. You could see him sit behind that Steelers line 3 and 4 seconds. It felt like he was back there and then hit a hole and go off for 30, 40 yards at a time. And that was just his running, not even his pass catching, which he may be the best pass catching back in the league still if he gets his opportunity. So I would say for Clyde Edwards-Helaire, this isn't going to hurt him at all to learn from a guy like Bell, even if it's just a little bit of the trick to the trade.
Yeah, no, I'll agree with that. I mean, you see some of these younger backs try to emulate him and doing the same thing there in the backfield where they, take a little bit more patient as opposed to the, bowling ball downhill runner. So I can definitely see it. I mean, good for him. Hopefully it turns out to be what it is. Maybe a part of me just wants him to not be successful because I don't want the Chiefs to be any better than they already are.
I think that might be it. I don't either, man. And listen, the Bills were in the running, but they were quickly dismissed. I don't think he fit into our plan. I don't think we needed him. And I think that ultimately he would have been miserable in Miami as he was with the New Jersey Jets. But I think he made the right choice. I don't know what his contract looks like. I didn't see the numbers. Have you seen his numbers yet for that?
No, I haven't seen anything. I mean, other than Bell's just the 1 million, so base and incentives.
Yeah, and I would, for fantasy purposes, he's not playing this week against Buffalo. And he has to do 6 days once he signs away from the facility. So he will probably have less than a full week of practice going in the next week. But we're not going to spend too much more time on individual player news. What we've talked about is maybe doing a live show tomorrow as well to go over some of the fantasy news, some of the matchups. But what we are going to do is talk teams for a little bit. Only 4 of them, though. The 4 undefeated teams left in the league. Chris, who are they?
So we're looking at Tennessee Titans, Pittsburgh Steelers, Seattle Seahawks, Green Bay Packers. And I think at the beginning of the year when you looked at that list and said week 6, who would be your undefeated teams, I'm not sure that any of them would be up there, possibly Seattle. I'm not sure that they're much of a surprise. If you look at Tennessee, they're typically a team that starts off a little slow and starts to pick it up towards the end of the year and gain momentum. So I definitely don't think people saw them coming into the season undefeated. Pittsburgh, there were some questions lingering around Big Ben and what he was going to be able to do. There was no doubt that they have a stout defense, but the offense, there were some questions there. Could Juju step up and be that number 1 guy? And Green Bay, we talked about it all draft and all offseason is, did they do enough to really support Aaron Rodgers? They didn't do hardly anything in the draft. I mean, A.J. Dillon, yet to be seen what he's really going to become, but instead they put a first-round pick in Jordan Love is the future of their franchise. So a little surprised to see them undefeated. But the question is that I throw out to you is, of those 4 undefeated teams, like who do you see is at the end of the season, who of those 4 is going to end up having the best record overall, and who do you see as having the worst record? Who's going to fall off?
Well, let me start with the NFC because I think the Hawks and the Packers are interesting. Hawks offense is disgusting. They are one of the most exciting offenses to watch right now. However, their defense is so suspect. Like, they have been in so many last-minute games. I mean, they were on a 4th and goal against the New England Patriots where it was an awful run call for Cam. They could have lost that game. They did a miraculous comeback against the Vikings after all that, the whole thing happened, and just snuck that game by. So I think that, they're a couple seconds away from being 3-2, maybe even 2-3, because there was another close game along the way. I would say that the Steelers are kind of the opposite end of that. They are. I'm going to get into the Packers first, then we'll go to the Steelers. The Packers, I don't know what it is, but their schedule's super soft. I mean, it's 10-ply Charmin, so they must have paid someone to get that schedule, because it is the softest schedule moving ahead. So I think that all they have to do is be mediocre and they can win. Aaron Rodgers just has to be Aaron Rodgers, and he can do it without Devontae Adams. We've seen it. He hasn't had Devontae Adams for a couple weeks, or had been missing him here and there for injuries. So I think they're going to be able to do it and out of those two teams. But then going to the AFC, it's like the Steelers defense is, I saw Jamie posted this on his wall, on his page the other day, I think it was. They're on pace to set the single season sack record. Did you see that? With I forget how many it was. Maybe Jamie can mention it. What do you think? Like you said, their offense is questionable. I just don't know.
They're starting to click a little bit. I mean, on your NFC take, I'll agree with you. I took a look at the remaining schedules for these teams. So Seattle, if you look at prominent teams left, I wouldn't even say the 49ers are a prominent team. They still have 2 games against them, but it is a division rival, so you always have to take those a little bit serious. Then they play the Bills and the Rams, right? So there's 4 games there that stand out of their 10. You turn the flip side to Green Bay. To your point, soft schedule. I mean, they are decaf is going to get. They've got the Bucs this week, which is going to be probably their toughest test. And they've got the Colts and the Titans. Beyond that, they're playing the rest of the NFC North in a soft schedule. Green Bay, to me, definitely is going to come out on top in the NFC from a record perspective. Then if you flip gears over to the AFC, the Titans still have the Steelers, the Ravens, the Colts twice, Cleveland, and Green Bay. So their schedule is definitely going to pick up. I can almost see a reversal with Tennessee where they came out the gates hot, and then they might start to sputter out towards the end of the year because they're grinding so hard. And the Steelers, listen, I'm going to take my Homer hat off. I'm not going to hate on the Steelers simply because I'm a Ravens fan, but they just haven't played anybody yet, and they don't make their schedule.
Let me take over then, since you're the North guy. I don't want to get Homer into it, but I was just going to say it. They beat the Giants 26-16. We all know the Giants might be the worst team in the league, arguably, with the Jets. Denver Broncos 26-21, which Denver, I think, is still in limbo. They could be good. They could be bad. I don't think we've found Denver's identity yet. Houston Texans, a very depleted Houston Texans who just got rid of their coach. They beat them by 1 score. Had the Tennessee game, which would have been their first tough matchup, postponed, and then barely snuck by the Philadelphia Eagles, which is a 1-3 team right now, 1-4 team, whatever it is, 1-3-1. I don't know. They have 1 win, and it's not against it was almost against the Pittsburgh Steelers. So moving ahead, I think you're right. We're going to get to see who they are. They have Cleveland, which is probably going to be their toughest matchup to date, which is sad because the 4-1 Browns for the first time since 1994 could give them a run. They have Tennessee, Baltimore, Dallas, Cincinnati. I mean, these are where you're going to find they could easily go. They've played with schedule. Jamie just said, absolutely. And you're right. They're undefeated. But I think they're the next team with a loss. I think they lose this week against Cleveland. What do you have them for this week?
Yeah, I mean, Cleveland's going to be the litmus test for them to see where they come out. I think they're going to split with Cleveland, and they'll probably split with Baltimore as they do every year. But they also have Tennessee. They've got Buffalo. They did luck out where the other teams in the AFC North, like the Ravens, had to play Kansas City. They got a cream puff in Denver, and they don't have to play against Kansas City, so they got lucky there. But I just don't see them sustaining. I mean, I think their record's still going to hold out. I think they're going to be probably like an 11-5 team. But, I think the team that emerges from the AFC North winning that division is probably going to be 14-2 or 13-3. So, we'll see. I think their challenge is really going to come because they've had to be forced to have their bye early. They're going to be rattling off a whole bunch of games. And, they get Cleveland, and then they're going to have to follow up Cleveland with Baltimore. And that's just not going to be an easy task.
Well, I will tell you this. I can guarantee you 2 of these teams will be undefeated at the end of this week because the Hawks and the Packers both have off this week. So they're getting rest. I believe the Hawks do. Hawks are off this week. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah,
I know. Are the Packers off this week as well? No, they were off last week, weren't they?
They were. They have this week. So there's a challenge there for Brady versus Rodgers. See who can.
Oh, that's right. So we know the Hawks will be undefeated. The Titans have the Texans. I'm giving them the win there, so I believe the Titans will be undefeated. I'm going to take the Browns over the Steelers. I think they get their loss, and I honestly think the Bucks take down the Packers. What's your thoughts on that game? Godwin is healthy, so
Godwin is healthy. I think the thing that we're seeing, and people will argue with me all day long, but we're seeing a regression with Tom Brady. I mean, you're blind if you can't see it. The arm strength and accuracy isn't there. To me, he looks like he's playing a little bit scared. In comparison to, as much as you dislike Aaron Rodgers, the man has balls and he goes out there and just puts it out and puts on a show and sticks his finger up to all the haters. So to me, I think Green Bay is going to put it to him. I think Tennessee is going to end up, I said it at the beginning of the year, I think they're an 8-8 team. Maybe I'll up that a little bit and give them something like 10-6, but they're just not going to be that team that people think they are.
Yeah, we'll find out. I'm excited. You know what, Chris? Tomorrow I'd like to hop on and we'll go through the Vegas lines and the odds, and we'll make our picks and maybe bring a few people like Jamie, since he knows all that there is to know. Maybe we'll bring him on and make a few of his picks too, since he's the only one I think that has supported us on our page to get one of the mugs. Jamie, have you gotten your mug yet? You have to let us know. All right. Do you want to move on from our football to a little bit of cards real quick before we let them go, as we're running on that 20-minute mark?
Yeah, let's do that. I mean, obviously the card market has been fast and furious with release after release coming out. A lot of good things to look at from football perspective, where, I like to dwell. And then obviously from the break side, you're dealing with basketball and baseball also. But a lot of releases have just come out. We've had Absolute Football, Origins Football, NT Collegiate, Spectra, and Zenith. Of those, I just kind of want to get a feel for which ones stand out to you. What did you like most? What did you like least about them? I'll start. Obviously, Spectra is one of those beautiful products that, everybody just loves the look of them. I like the thicker card stock. It makes it, to me, just a little more sturdy card, although you can have issues with edges and corners on those thicker stock cards. But they're just beautiful. My problem, again, and it's like beating a dead horse, but cost of product is just absolutely insane from a hobby box perspective. And so for me, I've said it's, in our past episodes, and I'll continue to beat the drum. This, to me, is a break product. I will join breaks all day long. I'll get my Ravens. But if you're going to the hobby shop and you're spending $700 to $800 in a box and trying to break even, your odds are going to be slim and none for the most part. So for me, I like Spectra. Collegiate, NT is always going to be NT. I'm not a big fan of collegiate product unless it's a PC. Origins is always a beautiful card. I love the look of that. And Absolute has some of the best patches in the game. So I think that, what they put out is good. Obviously, the big anticipation coming up is Prism, so everybody's saving their pennies for that. So we'll see what happens there and how much that comes out on the market. What are your thoughts?
I'm going to start with Spectra like you did. Since it was the most recent release that came out yesterday. Absolutely, the parallels on them are beautiful. The cards and this is across the board with Panini this year. For the most part, their product has increased in the quality of the product. Now, I'm not meaning that they don't still put points and have missing hits, but the cards themselves are beautiful this year. And in the past, you're right, they have had issues with corners. Everything I saw yesterday, they are such a higher quality of card, thicker stock, or a more consistent stock, I should say. And the corners are not near as soft as they used to be in the past. So I'm hoping that's going to be true for even products like Limited, which is like one of my favorite products, which has always been a problem with the corners. And they lightened up cards like Luminance this year as well to kind of not show so much of the white on corners as well. So I think Panini's looking at that as an important part of their production. But you're right. The one thing I heard, the number one complaint I heard about it outside of price was the patches are just such basic patches, napkin patches, one color patches. And I couldn't agree more. But I mean, you're getting 10 hits per box, 6 patches per box. You're bound to get some basic patches. The other complaint I heard about the patches, and this is true, this has always been true for Panini, is that you don't see it match up with the number of cards. So you might get an out of 10 patch that's a white patch and an out of 99 patch that has 5 colors in it. So I would like to see them focus more on that. It's the equivalent of them putting 7,000 points in a blaster box of basketball and putting 150 points in a box of black gold for football. It just, or a gold standard. It just doesn't match the price point of the product. But you're right on the price of it. Spectra came out as the same price as Mosaic. It seems like our new price point for these high-end boxes is $800 is the low end, because Prism coming out at $1,000 plus pre-sale. I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, Spectra is beautiful. Origins, I love the On Cards Auto. They might as well call it the Jets edition this year because every box I think had a Jets hit in it somewhere. Have you noticed this?
Yeah, they are fast and furious there. But you talked briefly about Prism and anticipation of that. So this was a question: did basketball turn Prism in the top dog in all product? I don't know that basketball necessarily did that. As far as I can remember, your Prism, just even base Prisms seem to be, the go-to card for, every sport, whether it be basketball or football. I think obviously having the draft class that they did with Zion and Ja certainly drove the market, but I think you're going to see exorbitant prices come out for, a Herbert Silver and a Burrow Silver, especially a PSA 10. I mean, you're going to start seeing these cards. They're going to be in the thousands out of the gate without them even proving themselves. I mean, you've got Justin Herbert, who can be a great talent, but he's on an 0-4 team right now. And his cards are going for astronomical numbers.
Yeah, you know what? You're right. And I know a lot of people say, well, like they said that with Mosaic too. The reason football Mosaic was popular is because of basketball market. But I think it was all like they just never had Mosaic football. But football's always liked the idea of Prism, Optic. Those parallel products have always been big. And I think Panini just finally understood that and bought into that idea and made it more accessible across the sports. So, but you're right. It's going to be crazy. We saw that with Lamar's, rookie, Allen rookie, even Allen rookies now. Anything, Mahomes rookies. Those rookies, the number one card you almost want anymore outside of NT is the Prism. I can't imagine another card people are going after, and that's why they're able to pre-sell it for so much. But if you don't want to spend that much money, there are still other stuff. I mean, like you talked about, there was Zenith that was out. There was, what else did we say? Oh, NT Collegiate. I know you're an NT guy. What was your thoughts on NT Collegiate?
To me, NT hasn't really evolved much. To me, it's the same stuff, new day. Like, the cards are beautiful, they're great cards, but they haven't really changed their look. And maybe that's the what people like about it is the fact that Flawless and NT are going to be a very consistent, polished looking, high quality product. But I don't think they push the bounds too much as far as what they can do. They haven't added in any new kind of parallels or things. It's been pretty status quo. So from that perspective, same thing, new day. Obviously, the patches are pretty nice. You can get some really nice looking patches in both NT and Flawless. So, if you're a Herbert fan and you want the Oregon Ducks patch, and you're a Burrow fan and you want that LSU stuff, you can certainly get it.
Yeah, and I hear people say, I lost my butt on NT Collegiate because I didn't get a card. But for that price point, if you're frustrated about that, you might as well give up on Pro NT. If you saw what like Prisms at a box, imagine that times like 3 or 4 for NT Pro Edition. So, and it comes the same setup as the Collegiate. It's got like 5 or 6 hits in it, and then that's all she wrote. So a super risky product. But I want to go over to what one of the Facebook users says, Mosaic. And a reminder, if your thing on the screen here says Facebook user, you can give access at the top of your screen so that we can see you and see who you are. But listen, Optic, Prism, those kind of products, those silver products, they never put patch cards in there. And I don't know why that is, but like Prism offers 1 patch card per case. And ironically, it's never as valuable as any of the other ones. The case hit, they're beautiful cards. They don't hold near the value as just the base autographs do. It's nuts.
It's the same thing when you look at NT. The true RPA to 99 will always hold more value than even a 1 of 1. I mean, it's just, that's what the product's known for. And I think that's what, they continue to kind of keep as their legacy in each of those products. I am going to throw something out there, and we disagree on some things, which I think is great, but this is one thing that I can firmly agree on with you. Oftentimes you'll say slow your roll, right? So people go out, and as soon as a new product is out there, they go buy. Slow your roll, wait for the prices to start to deteriorate a little bit. Mosaic is a prime example. We're looking at, Prism being on the cusp here. Mosaic prices are already starting to go down with Spectra being released. I think they're going to continue to drop with Prism being released, and you're going to be able to go after those cards at a much lower price point than the people that went out as soon as it hit the market and overspent, in my opinion. So I think slow and steady is the way to play the market right now. Things that you and I talked about it, because of the price of the product is so high from a box perspective, people then have to justify putting a higher price tag on the cards that they're trying to flip or sell, because the product's higher. So I think if you wait and slow roll a little bit, you can probably get a little bit more bang for your buck. And that's something you've been a proponent of for a long time.
Yeah, and you know what? I would say that too. If you get into breaks, and Chris, we were talking this before we went live, the difference between random and PYT, and we try to mix it up over at Blazing Breaks. But the thing is, if you get a card and maybe it's not your PC card, it's okay to flip it, but do it soon. I had a buddy that pulled out of a blaster box of Mosaic. He got the not the Genesis Michael Gallup. The first Michael Gallup Genesis sold for $1,000. The second one sold for $600. The third one sold for, I think it was $250. He was able to finally get $100 for his. That was within a 2-week time frame. Now you're seeing a lot of these prices deteriorate quickly, but then if a player goes off, i.e. Chase Claypool, then you're seeing them go up. So again, back to one of our previous episodes, get your cards organized. You know, if you're going hard and you can't afford to get into a break every day, use your downtime, watch some breaks, and then organize your cards, because you're going to want to know where all your Chase Claypools are when he scores 4 touchdowns. Because I know someone in our group this week bought a 101 Chase Claypool mosaic for $600, just sold it for $2,500 after his 4 touchdowns. That's, wow, you know, a 400% profit increase, and he wasn't going to get rid of it, but how do you deny that? You know, and that's a PC guy. He can buy so much more along the way. And, you know, so look out for that. And that's something I wanted to talk about in tomorrow's edition is, who do we want to look out for today? Whose cards do you want to have ready to put on eBay's buy it now that maybe aren't in your PC? So who are the breakout guys for tomorrow? But Chris, do you have anything you want to say about, before we get into the products coming out? I saw you said Prism does come out November 18th. We're going to look at the remaining products in October. But anything about these other products? Real quick, what was your take on Zenith? Because that was one of the only new products we've seen this year that Panini hasn't put out yet.
Yeah, I mean, I was impressed with it. I mean, for the price point, I think it was a good-looking product. Nothing too extravagant, but, you know, certainly, you know, a good middle-of-the-road product for those that, you know, can't go after the higher-price stuff. Anything new, you know, is going to hold value. Like if you think about it, when Mosaic came out, it was the first, you know, time you're going to get Tom Brady in a Bucs uniform in that product. So if you got anything that was Tom Brady Bucs, it's going to be the first year of him in that product. Same thing with Zenith. All these players, it's going to be their first time in a Zenith product. So, you know, that's going to, for a PC perspective, hold some value there. But I would say I'm interested to see what everybody else thinks. So if you're listening, or if you rewatch this later on, go into the Facebook pages and let us know what is the product that's recently come out that you're most impressed with, what are you least impressed with, and which product are you most anticipating.
And coming up, as you can anticipate, here's what we have coming up for collegiate sports. Contenders Draft Pick Basketball comes out on October 21st. And that says it's 2020 Contenders Draft Picks Collegiate Basketball. That's going to be the new class. Also on October 21st, we have Encased Basketball as well for the 1920 season. On the 28th, we have WNBA Prism Basketball, which apparently people are super jacked about. Cool, you know, I guess anything Prism will sell. I mean, we broke our first box of Prism Racing last night. So listen, I'm not going to judge anyone. Prism and get her done. Prism is Prism. And then a new product coming out on October 28th for basketball is clearly Don Russ. It looks like Panini's they're not going to crank the presses on any one individual product. They're just going to keep creating variations of products. Now it's clearly Don Russ, which is a Don Russ with like choice in a way, where you get like 8 or 9 cards. And I think there's some acetate cards in there as well, some clear cards. So again, they're being innovative in that way. And then they're also doing Hoops Premium Stock Basketball. So even though the season's over, it looks like Panini has about 6 or 7 more 1920 products coming out, which is insane. And I think part of the reason they're doing that is because of the delay in the draft. We're not going to have that draft done for a little bit, so why not put a few new products out that they've never done before? What are your thoughts on that as far as the value of the hobby goes?
Yeah, so I mean, obviously right now, basketball coming, you saw, which is... We saw it in football, which was kind of ironic. You anticipate the opposite to happen. So the Chiefs win the Super Bowl, and then all of a sudden Patrick Mahomes' cards started to dip in value. Same thing actually happened after the NBA championship. LeBron won the championship, and his cards immediately started to dip afterwards. We're in a down cycle right now. It typically happens in football. When the football season comes, cards get suppressed a little bit, so you're going to start to see baseball and basketball cards go down. Obviously, their season's going to start back up, so I would say now's a buy time for basketball. I wouldn't be, trying to get rid of things. I'd hold on to them. I would especially be going after, if you can't do and can't afford like the Luka and the Ja rookies, stock up on second-year stuff. Everything that I'm hearing and what I'm seeing, the 2020 draft class is just not that impressive when you compare it to, the draft classes from 17, 18, and 19, 20. LaMelo is going to probably be the chase, and who even knows what he's going to do. So besides that, I think you're going to start to see the values on these 17, 18, and 18, 19 cards continue to go up. So the fact that they're putting out more product from 1920 type stuff is not a bad thing. So you can kind of scoop up some more of those guys and stash them. So I would say stash, grade, and just hold on to them until the season kicks off.
And Chris just said November 18th, you'll see an uptick in the market, especially for the newer products. when a new product comes out for basketball. But Chris, you're absolutely right. There's always this dip, and that's a buy time. It's not a sell time. Don't get scared and unload your collection. That's the worst thing you can do. It's not like an uncommon decline in the market. This is absolutely a scheduled decline. And you're right. Buy some of those cards you believe in if you can get a deal on them. Watch out for eBay auctions because the market's getting overloaded because there's some people afraid. There's some people that got bored with it, who got in it for basketball season, and it's not currently in their mind. So like you're absolutely right. Take advantage of that. Or is there anyone you're buying up right now in basketball? Then we'll get into football.
I think it's going to be interesting to see what Tyler Hero can do. I think Kobe White's going to be one of those players that's going to have a real breakout. So I would stash up on prisms of both of those guys, especially graded if you can. Obviously, and then I say second years, like second year Luka, second year John Morant. I think the second year is now going to become the rookies because rookies are going to get so expensive that people just can't afford them. I think the popularity in the second year cards is going to start to go up. So, that's kind of those players that I'm talking about. And, I think from your perspective as well, being that it's a buy time, if you do have product that you want to sell, here's a strategy. Go on eBay, throw it on there for an exorbitant amount of money, higher than you think the card's even worth. If somebody puts an offer out there that's more than you're expecting to get, take it, but it's not going to hurt you to have it sit there. Somebody was telling me, I was kind of not complaining, but just bringing up a topic of discussion about how card prices have dipped and buyers are just trying to get stuff super, super low right now. And they said, well, listen, if somebody really wants the card, they're going to pay for the card. So that's the same case right now. So if you've got stuff you want to get rid of, put it on eBay, put it at a high price. And if someone wants to throw an offer out there, do it. What do you got to lose?
Absolutely. And I couldn't agree more. Let's hop over to football really quick though. Because we talked about the basketball releases. Here's what we have coming out for football collegiate. And actually we'll start by date here. October 23rd, the next product is XR. XR football comes out. That's 3 hits per box, 2 autos, and a mem. Something about XR is it's loaded with 101s, usually at least one per case, but beautiful cards. I'm hoping they lighten that up a little bit. Has a kind of like a luminance look, a little bit darker backdrop, but usually pretty nice cards, nice patches. A lot of vet autos in that as well, kind of like Spectra, so you can get a lot of good stuff out of there. Triple autos is something that's big with XR. We've pulled some really cool triple autos out of that. Phoenix football, one of my favorite products, is the last one in October. That comes out October 30th. And then also Flawless Collegiate Football comes out October 30th as well. So it's kind of weird getting, I don't ever remember collegiate product coming out this late into the year. I'm curious how that product does, and it's extremely pricey. So we'll see how it goes, but very nice cards. That also has the gem cards in it, the diamond cards, which people are big on. I know even the non-hit cards in that do really well.
They do. I do want to bring up a point. I don't want to belabor the basketball thing here, but a Facebook user did notice that I didn't say anything about Zion, who is to blame for some of the rise. And I did that for a very good reason. Number one, I'm not on the Zion train long term. I don't think when you look at careers 15 years from now, he's going to be that guy. I definitely think John Morant and Luka have bigger upsides to them. I also think that the price on Zion cards is so exorbitant that it makes no sense to go out and get them right now. So no, I'm not going to put Zion on that. I think you can get much better value for your money in people like, even second-year Jaws and the Kobe Whites and the Tyler Heroes. And then Chris Taylor also said throw Kevin Porter Jr. there in Cleveland and Rui up in Washington with those. So I agree with all of that. So no, I'm not going to put Zion on there. I'm not a believer. And until I'm proven otherwise, that's kind of where I sit with Zion.
And someone else just said about your point on the second year cards. Luka's second year Prism was selling for 80 to 100. Now they're at 40. Again, that's not uncommon. That's the dip in the market that we're talking about. So don't take that as I better not invest. Actually, now if you're having any time to invest, don't wait. That's the problem is people say, they're starting to go up again. I better buy one. You're missing an opportunity, but only buying those players that Chris said you really believe in. If you really think Kobe White's going to be that dude or Tyler Harris is going to be that dude, Luka's going to be that dude, do it. Don't just buy Zion because they dipped, because if you don't believe in that person, then don't buy into him. If you think he's going to deal with injuries the rest of his career, don't buy into him because it's probably going to be, you won't feel bad if he hits. You've got to pick and choose who you do. But yeah, so not much more to talk about as far as the football goes. Those products will keep pouring out. November is jam-packed with releases. Chris, what's the product maybe we didn't talk about outside of Prism that you're most excited for this year?
Well, I'm with you on the Phoenix train. I wasn't as firm a believer into it until I started going back through old stuff and looking at it. I think Phoenix is on the rise, and that's not just a stupid pun, but I really see that product. It's a beautiful product. I think XR is a beautiful product. Obviously, Prism's going to be, the one that people are going to covet and want to go after. So I think those things are going to be good. And then I always look forward to Obsidian and Impeccable as well, which we've got those coming out, at the end of November into December. So a lot of good stuff coming, but it's going to be interesting. You just got to pick and choose. I mean, I would say as a collector is know what you like and put your investment into those things that you enjoy. Nothing in this is guaranteed. It's like the stock market. So one day a player can be up, the next day can be down. So if you're doing this simply for a flip perspective, trying to get a quick win, it may not be the best strategy. So I would say do what you enjoy and go after those people, to your point, Mike, that you truly believe in.
Yep, and that's what makes it fun. It's like the stock market in a way. And I'm not saying don't PC, guys. You got it. We've talked about this a lot, so I won't hit it too hard. But separate your PC from your investment. There's nothing wrong with investing in cards right now. It's become that kind of thing. But also, don't just make it about that. If you want to just PC, that's fine. But you got to enjoy the hobby as well, and you got to pay for it. So investing is okay too. So get a couple cards that you really believe in. Don't overspend, and maybe they turn into something, but don't go Logic. We not a lot of us can, because Logic just spent $220,000 on a Charizard. Chris, how many Charizards you got laying around?
You know what's crazy about this? I've reached out to every one of my friends that has boys, and I was like, if they don't have Pokemon cards that they don't want, let me know and I'll buy them from them just to look for these cards. I saw another one. There's a guy who's named Logan Paul. He just spent $150,000 on a Series 1 Charizard card, PSA 10. It's absolutely insane.
Yeah, it's funny because a couple weeks ago, my kid was asking about Pokemon, and I had said I'd seen some people breaking it, so I called around and saw if I could get Pokemon. Apparently, I was a little late. This was a few weeks ago before the Logic purchase and everything, and there was very limited Pokemon available. Now you can't even get a box. It's gone everywhere, even at Walmarts and stuff. Now guys are not only are they camping out for football, but the Pokemon shelves seem to be empty, and I don't think people know what they're getting into, because a lot of these guys are buying Series 1 original Pokemon cards. They're not buying these blaster big packs from Walmart and stuff. You're not going to find the value in it, and I think that could be a scary market. So tread carefully. Don't dive into something you don't know anything about. Do your research before you go spend $300 on a box of Pokemon cards where you might get a $20 card out of it.
Well, and to your point, these people can afford it, right? And that's what kind of annoys me. And I appreciate Gary Vee and what he did. So Gary Vee obviously drove the market to an extent when he came out with all of his Giannis's. But since then, he has curbed it to where he doesn't show people what he's investing in, because he doesn't want to be that person influencing the market. When you've got these guys that are multimillionaires that can go out and drop what is equivalent of $10 to us on a $200,000 card, then people start to go out and take that as gospel and try to find them. And it's just not the way that it's going to work. So to your point, I mean, you've got to know your resources, limit yourself, do your homework. To my point, where am I going? I'm going to my buddy's kids who are 5 and 6 years old that no longer play with their Pokemon cards, and I can buy 100 of them for $20, and maybe I find something in there.
Yeah, and I brought this point up yesterday too, is definitely a spike in the hobby as far as why boxes have gone up so much. You see a lot more celebrities and wealthy people getting into it. Part of that, and I believe this specifically with athletes and celebrities and things like that, part of the reason they're getting in is because some popular, figures have mentioned it and they see the market getting popular. But also, these are people that have a ton of money and not a lot of places to spend it right now. Events they would go to, big, clubs, parties, whatever they do in their circles, they're not happening right now. There's nowhere for them to spend their money. I don't necessarily even believe they're spending their normal money they would on their cars and their, things like that, their clothes, because there's nowhere to go. There's nowhere to enjoy that. So I think they're just laying low and they're looking for something to do. And that's unfortunately caused a natural spike in the market. Again, this is just a theory I was coming up with, because where else are they spending that money? So, hey, let's hop in and have a little fun. Wahlberg did it with, I think it was Mark Wahlberg did it with his kids. I think he spent like $60,000, $70,000 to get his kids' business started in cards by buying them a ton of cards on sealed wax for them to just crack. So it's interesting. I'm curious to see how, when the COVID, fog lifts, what that looks like for the hobby.
Well, and we could be on the precipice of a second round of stimulus checks here, so we'll see what that does too. But look what we did, Mike. So we came on board. We're like, let's keep it short. Let's get a little 20-minute segment in. When you take us away from what we love, now we're 45 minutes deep. So I don't want to keep belaboring and boring people. Like you said, we're going to try to get back on here tomorrow and start taking some hot takes on fantasy. We're going to look at the Vegas odds and give you some of our picks for that. But I do want to address two of the questions got thrown out here. So one was, what is the release date on Optic? There has not been a set release date right now. Most likely it's going to be after the first of the year. And then Cam Reddish, yes, I would agree. Put Cam Reddish in that pool of potential players you want to do some research on, but definitely some big upside there. So.
All right. Hey, reach out to us, message myself or Chris if you'd like to come on tomorrow and maybe give your hot take for your lock of the week tomorrow. We'd love to have you on. All you have to do is we'll send you a link. We'll click you in. We'll let you in just for a minute, and you can give us your hot take and why you think that's your lock of the week against the Vegas spread. And maybe what we'll do here as a podcast is I'll throw a little fun wager on with our locks of the weeks from 3 or 4 users and see how we do as a group. So tune in tomorrow. Chris, do we have like maybe a possible time for them to kind of keep an eye on? We want to do it around 10:30 a.m. again tomorrow?
Yeah, I think we do it at enough time where people can set their fantasy lineups. We get the West Coasters time to wake up and get their pot brewing. So, and give us some feedback too. If you guys like these quote unquote shorter little morning brew sessions, let us know if that works for you. But we're going to keep doing them. So I'd say 10 a.m. Eastern time tomorrow. We'll go live again. Let Mike or I know via Messenger if you want to come on and give us some of your hot takes. We'd love to have you guys out there. It's great to be back. Thank you guys so much for hanging around with us. I know there was a gap there, and we're going to try to be more consistent with it. We love the interaction. We love having you guys on. So appreciate it.
Thank you all. Thank you, Chris.